For centuries, classical art has depicted Jesus as a serene figure draped in clean robes, floating above the dirt of the real world. But his early life was rooted in a far different historical reality. He was an entirely ordinary first-century man. The book of Isaiah prophesied his physical appearance, stating that he possessed no distinct beauty or majesty. If you passed him on a dirt road in Nazareth, you would not have blinked. He looked completely unremarkable to the passing eye. He was a blue-collar worker. Joseph was a carpenter, and Jesus learned the exact same trade. He worked with his hands, fixing and building structures for his neighbors. And he was deeply embedded in a large family network, living alongside multiple half-siblings like James and Jude, and keeping his own relatives directly within his inner circle. His closest friend was his cousin, John. Before following Jesus, John ran a successful fishing business, navigating the rural waters of the north and selling catches in the urban retail markets of Jerusalem. This was a gritty, working-class trade, fully integrated into the local economy. This timeline charts the scale of his public influence. Notice the long, flat line. For 3 decades, this tradesman lived in total obscurity. He did not preach or lead. But suddenly, at age 30, the line violently spikes upward. In a window of only 3.5 years, he sparked a movement that engulfed the known world. The power of his story does not begin in the clouds. The entire foundation of his life is rooted in his total immersion in the mundane, overlooked, and sweaty reality of the human experience. He actively engaged in the vibrant culture of first-century Palestine. He attended massive, multi-day wedding festivals. At a celebration in Cana, when the host ran out of beverages and faced severe social embarrassment, he produced high-quality wine to save the event. He also possessed a severe capacity for raw emotion. When he discovered merchants exploiting travelers by overcharging for sacrifices in this massive courtyard on the Temple Mount, he physically overthrew their heavy commercial tables and aggressively cleared the marketplace. The crushing demands of thousands of desperate people constantly tracking his movements took a massive psychological toll. To survive, he built a deliberate practice of strict isolation. He routinely fled deep into the mountains alone to pray and recharge his mind. The climax of this psychological burden hit on the night before his execution. While waiting under these ancient trees in Gethsemane, his mental distress reached such an extreme that he experienced hematodrosis, a rare clinical condition where capillaries burst under intense pressure, causing a person to literally sweat drops of blood. This pattern of emotional exhaustion and physiological breakdown reveals the sheer weight of his existence. He existed entirely within the harsh, unforgiving limits of the human nervous system. Woven directly alongside that vulnerability are extreme, supernatural anomalies. Before his ministry even began, he walked into the brutal Judean wilderness and survived a punishing 40-day fast, pushing his physical body to the absolute brink of starvation. While isolated in that severe state of deprivation, the text records him intellectually sparring with the devil. He answered every single temptation by precisely quoting defensive scriptures from the book of Deuteronomy. The historical record also documents 3 separate, highly public events where the creator of the universe audibly spoke to him from the sky, verifying his identity in front of massive crowds. His ultimate demonstration of authority came through reversing biological death. He stopped a funeral procession to bring a widow's only son back to life, revived a synagogue leader's young daughter, and called his own close friend, Lazarus, out of a burial cave. Raising Lazarus after 4 literal days of bodily decay was the definitive catalyst. The sheer impossibility of the act drove his followers into terror and awe, and forced his political enemies to immediately plot his assassination. These events create an inescapable paradox. The vulnerable, blue-collar carpenter who bleeds, starves, and weeps simultaneously wielded terrifying, absolute authority over the core laws of nature. These 2 conflicting realities, his fragile human vulnerability and his massive divine mission, violently collided at his crucifixion. The Roman execution methods severely disfigured him. Hundreds of years prior, the prophet Isaiah predicted exactly this detail, writing in ancient Hebrew that the Messiah's appearance would be marred beyond human likeness. Even in death, the details aligned perfectly with ancient texts. Despite dying as an enemy of the state, his body was collected by a wealthy disciple named Joseph of Arimathea and placed in an expensive rock-cut tomb, fulfilling yet another obscure prophecy. This schematic illustrates a cross-section of a first-century burial site. Roman authorities were deeply paranoid that his followers would steal the corpse and claim he returned. To stop this, Pilate mandated 3 distinct security layers: a massive stone disc rolled over the entrance, stationed armed guards, and a Roman seal affixed to the stone. That Roman seal was a stark visual warning. Breaking it meant challenging the empire, a crime punishable by immediate crucifixion. Rome deployed overwhelming military and engineering force against a dead body. By treating a corpse as a massive political threat, they unintentionally built an impenetrable stage to validate the ultimate proof of his identity. The historical accounts describe the resurrection as a startling biological reality. The seal was broken, the stone was moved, and the body was simply gone. When he appeared to his heavily skeptical disciples, they panicked, assuming they were seeing a spirit. To destroy their doubts, he forced them to look directly at the severe execution marks on his hands and feet and urged them to physically touch his scars. To provide undeniable proof of a functioning biological body, he asked for food. Right in front of them, he chewed and swallowed a piece of broiled fish. Before departing, he issued his final directive, the Great Commission. He commanded this small, working-class group of men and women to take the raw facts of this reality to the absolute ends of the earth. The enduring legacy of Jesus is the radical paradox of his identity. The absolute maker of the universe chose to step into the dirt, endure the exhaustion, feel the pain, and live out the unvarnished reality of being entirely human.